I think God gave the body the ability to heal just about everything if you give it the right tools. Like for years, sailors died of scurvy. The British Navy lost 1 million sailors who died of scurvy in, I think, 1700s. They found out, too late for those million, that it was a lack of vitamin C, ascorbic acid, because they couldn't keep fruit fresh out at sea for months. So they started bringing limes on board because they will keep longer, and they called them the limeys. They still didn't know it was vitamin C, but they knew the lime stopped you getting scurvy.
Let's look into the details of genes and also something called pseudogenes. And let me explain a particularly interesting feature of one little snippet of DNA as an example of this. So first of all, we're looking here at 3 genes that happen to be in the same order in humans, cows, mice, and quite a lot of other mammals as well. EPHX2, GULO, and CLU are in that same order for these 3 species, which in itself is at least suggestive of a common ancestor. Otherwise, why would these genes be clumped together this way? They are totally different in their functions. There doesn't seem to be any logical reason why they need to be near each other, but they are. But I chose this particular set of genes for a reason, because they tell a very interesting story. Because for the cow and the mouse, all 3 of those genes are functional. For the human, the one in the middle, GULO, when you look at its DNA sequence, it is really messed up. In fact, it is what we would call a pseudogene. About half of its coding region has been deleted. It's just not there. It cannot make a protein. It can't do much of anything except travel along from generation to generation as a little DNA fossil of what used to be there. Now, is there a consequence of this? By the way, this is a downgrade, not an upgrade. Most of our genes are not like this, but this one tells a particularly interesting story. So GULO stands for galunolactone oxidase. What in the world is that? Well, that's the enzyme which is the final step in the synthesis of ascorbic acid, or vitamin C. And so it is because of that pseudogene, that deletion of GULO, that those sailors got scurvy, but the mice on the ship didn't. Because this is, for us as humans, one of those things that apparently we got along fine without, except in unusual circumstances. A mutation arose, there was no evolutionary drive to get rid of it, and so it is one we now have. We humans are altogether completely deficient in being able to make vitamin C, whereas other animals are not. Now, look at that picture and try to contemplate how that could have come about in the absence of a common ancestor. If you're going to argue that these are individual acts of special creation, then you would have to say that God intentionally placed a defective gene in the very spot where common ancestry would have predicted it to be. And God would have to do that, presumably, to test our faith. But that sounds like a God that I don't recognize. That sounds like a God who's involved in deception and not in truth. I could give you many more examples like this, but when you look at the details, it seems inescapable that evolution is correct and that we humans are part of that.